Welcome to the Humanity Mosaic Podcast, exploring authenticity and connection with Dr. E. Thank you for joining us today as we explore issues that affect our relationships in today's world. And now welcome to today's episode with Dr. E.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here with you today. My name is Dr. Deborah Threadgill Egerton. As I always say, way too much name to remember. Everyone now refers to me as Dr. E. And I decided that I really wanted to have a way of spending more time with all of you out here in the world. I do a lot of teaching and a lot of speaking in different places. But this virtual world that we can now enter by being on podcasts and having conversations on Zoom is just amazing. So let's just take advantage of that and spend some time together. So let me give you a little background on me, and we'll just sort of get to know each other. One of the things that has been a lifelong sort of thread in my life that I've never let go of is my passion for working with and helping people who are marginalized, who are lonely, feel left out, kind of pushed to the side. I've been doing that since childhood, and I can't say that I'm really sure why. I just know that even as a young child, I noticed when there was that one kid in my class who people treated them differently, or that one family member that just seemed to annoy everyone. It's something that just stood out in my vision, in my line of sight. And, the brain can take in a lot of information, but the information that seemed to always come right to me was who was being treated differently, who was having a sad moment, who did not feel included. And though it was not a conscious choice, nor was it a conscious decision that I was going to be a person that went out into the world and tried to make that better, my behaviors began to develop in that way around that central theme. It's really interesting to me that all these years later, from the time that I was a child to the present moment, I'm still doing that. I'm still looking for ways to bring people into the center space, the space where you can feel and experience love and kindness, and where you treat one another as equals. So, going through my life, not only did I have a long history of looking at, like I said, people who were marginalized, felt lonely, felt disconnected, but I had a really interesting sort of childhood. I kind of call it a non-childhood because when I was 10 years old, I was quote unquote discovered and became a model. So I spent a lot of time around more adults than I did children, and a lot of time around people who were very focused on the external, very focused on beauty and fashion and how things looked, aesthetics, and yet sometimes had no focus whatsoever on how they treated one another or how I was being treated as a little young African American girl who had suddenly been thrust into a world that was so unlike anything I had ever known. So it opened my eyes to how it really feels to be that person who is maybe somewhat invisible, and then at other times too visible. That has actually informed my way of being in the world. and it continues to inform my way of being in the world. Um, I married young, and I had 3 children. I've been married twice. I had a starter husband and a lifelong husband. And I often say that in reality, I had a love match that came from the mind and heart of a child. And I had a union that was divinely given to me that came from the love of God, the mind and heart of a woman, and that it is a union that has lasted 43 years. So you'll learn a lot more about that later. My life path weaved through so many different parts of humanity that it's one of the reasons I felt so called to do this podcast. Um, my first husband and my present husband, both military officers, both doctors. Being married to someone in the military took me to many parts of the United States to live. And I found that no matter where I went in my country or later in other countries, that people had the unique ability to get on one another's last nerve in every language. And I began to notice that our reactivity around the way someone said something or the the way someone's volume would go up or how quickly the anger would show up or how the tears would come and flow so easily from some and not from others. All of those things were fascinating to me. Of course, I followed a path of psychology and ended up as a psychotherapist, and I practiced for many years. And later, I actually, after practicing on campus at State University of New York at New Paltz, I eventually left psychotherapy. I call myself a psychotherapist in recovery and started my own business. And when I decided to start my business, um, it was not something that I really decided to do. It was sort of a divine anointing, a moment where I was given a message that said, start your own business and call it Trinity. And that's exactly what I did. But I didn't know what Trinity was going to do. But I did make sure that I did all the legal work and I added transition consultants to the name Trinity. And that was almost 30 years ago, Trinity Transition Consultants, LLC. And with my work in Trinity, I went out into the world and I tried to help people to the very best of my ability to learn to be kind, compassionate, have empathy, understanding, and to most importantly, get beyond the stuck place of tolerance. I have always seen tolerance as a bit of a problem because it's a great starting place. It's a wonderful starting place to at least make the conscious decision to have tolerance for differences. Um, but it evolves in a really funky way. You know, when you decide that you're going to be more tolerant of your mother in law, but you spend the rest of your life tolerating her. When you decide that you're going to be more tolerant of this phase that your child is going through, but yet for the rest of your life, you look at your child through a very different and distorted lens. When you decide that your spiritual path or your faith belief is the one true belief, and yet you can only allow yourself to tolerate, but not to love everyone equally. These are deep concepts, and the depth of our tolerance and where it may have taken us off track is profound. And it is profoundly important that we begin to look at who we choose to love and who we choose not to love, who we choose to respect and who we choose not to respect, who we choose to accept and who we decide to exclude. So, Humanity Mosaic, where did that come from? It came from the reality that we are not a melting pot. Our world is a beautiful mosaic of different types of people. We don't all think the same. We don't all look the same. We don't act the same. We don't have the exact same identical beliefs or values. We don't navigate the world in the same way. We don't all get treated in the same way. But what is the meaning making behind all of that? There's deep meaning behind all of that. And when we drill down into our own individual being, when we get to the very essence of who we are, what are we contributing to the humanity mosaic? Are we contributing our best possible, authentic selves? Or are we actually constantly shape-shifting into different versions of who we think someone else has decided that we should be? We will never, ever, ever get to a place of respecting and loving one another, of being able to understand what true empathy and compassion looks or feels like, nor will we be able to come together understanding the truth of there is no place where I end and you begin. We're all connected. So if I am unkind to you, I am unkind to myself. Because the lack of kindness that I may demonstrate for you in any given moment comes from a place of lovelessness for myself. So we have a lot to talk about here. We really do. And we will be talking to many different people who will bring many different perspectives into the humanity mosaic. I want you to remember that your contribution to this is huge. Your voice matters, and I want to hear from you. I want to know who you would love to hear from, who you want me to bring on as a guest. Now, I will do my very best to bring people on that you'd love to hear from. I don't know if I can get Oprah, so we'll do our best to do that. And if she happens to be one of your BFFs, just let her know that I'm happy to have her on the Humanity Mosaic. But the people that are coming on are lined up from a really star-studded cast of wonderful human beings who have been in my life, some for a long period of time, some for briefer periods, but they all have taught me something, and they all have something to share and to teach you. We have Hay House authors who will be with us. We have Enneagram practitioners, experts, and enthusiasts. We have people from the everyday walk of life, moms, single parents, people who have chosen not to be moms, not to be dads. We have non binary humans. We have brothers, sisters, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of it. And maybe we'll even have you, because if you are someone who has a story to share and you let us know that what you have to say, you want the world to hear it, then I try to make space for you. Making space for yourself and holding space in the world is hugely important. Don't be a shadow, be a presence that occupies a space. Don't stand behind anyone else. Stand and step forward and take your rightful space in the world. Breathe the air that was intended for you to breathe, but make sure that that air is clean. If there is a lot of negative energy around you, then remember that you have the power to remove negative energy from your space, from your air, and from your being. If these are things that you don't know how to do, well, welcome aboard, because on the Humanity Mosaic, we're going to be talking about things like how to remain more positive. What do you do about the negative people who are constantly bringing in the gloom and the doom, and they can't find a kind thing to say or a positive way to be in a space with you? I want you to be able to learn and grow and to be not only proud, but comfortable being your authentic self. To that end, I actually created the Authentic Self community. And in this community, we're using my Enneagram journals that you'll be able to, well, actually, you can now purchase them through Hay House or anywhere the books are sold online, Amazon. Go to my website. You can get a link there and get a journal. If you don't happen to know what your Enneagram type is, well, there's a quiz on my website as well, and you can take the Enneagram quiz, but don't get married to the results. I always say, when you're first learning about the Enneagram, carry it lightly. Now, I just threw that in there, talking about the Enneagram, because I am well known for being an Enneagram, like I said, teacher, practitioner, enthusiast. I also happen to be the president of the International Enneagram Association. So, will we be talking a bit about the Enneagram? I think we will. And I'm very proud and happy to occupy that position in the world, particularly now when we are working very hard to bring the Enneagram community together and to connect us all across the world. It is a global organization, and we have affiliates all around the world. I recently returned from a trip to Japan where I met some wonderful people who study and teach the Enneagram, and that hopefully you'll be hearing from them in the future on the show as well. So there's so many things that I could share with you today, but I don't think I should put them all in one episode. This is day one of what I hope will continue for a very long time. I have a deep love in my heart for just the concepts of authenticity, connection, and belonging. And anywhere and in any way that I can create the space for people to learn what that really means and how that truly feels, I'm there. Why? Because I do believe the words of Maya Angelou. People may not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. I hope you will remember how I make you feel and how my guest will make you feel. I hope that if you're not a lifelong learner, you're ready to become one because we don't know what we don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't slow down enough to recognize that we're going off and reacting to things without any depth of understanding, without any backstory, without any perspective on what may be going on the other side of something that we don't understand or that we've never had an experience with. I want us to come together and to learn from each other. As I always say, we don't all think alike. We don't all have the same values. We don't all have the same life experience. But as I think about a poster that I used to pass on the highway, a big billboard that said, "If you knew my story, you wouldn't hate me." I believe that to be true. I believe that when we take the time to learn from each other and to value one another, we can have a very different experience of one another on this earth. Is peace on this earth even possible? It will never be possible if we don't try. But first, we have to find the peace within ourselves. My first book, No Justice and No Peace, KNOW, know what those concepts mean, is a good place to start. It's a good place to learn how to love yourself so that you can love others. This world is amazing. I just don't think we know exactly how to appreciate how amazing it is, how amazing our lives can be, how amazing it is to help someone else flourish if your life is already flourishing. We have a responsibility to one another that should not feel like a burden. It should feel like a gift. Every human that I have ever been able to be gifted with, to have them come across my path, that I've been able to help, has been a gift, no matter how difficult it might have been to help them. Why? Not just because of what it may have done for that person, but because, much like the Grinch, it helped my heart to grow 10 times. So I hope you love this space and I hope you come here often. This is day one, as I said before, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things. But just to give you a little bit of a teaser so that you do come back for day two, my guest on the second episode of the Humanity Mosaic will be the amazing Dr. Walter Eugene Egerton III, my husband, otherwise known as Gene, or the other Dr. E, but he tries to claim that he had it first. He kind of did. Loving other people starts with being able to love yourself, to give and receive love. I have always said that I'm a woman well loved. Episode 2, you'll find out why I say that. I hope that you have enjoyed this first episode. I know I have rambled on, but I do love what I do in the world. And if I can share what I love with you, then life is really good. Remember, the Humanity Mosaic is about all of us. It is about allowing us to be who we were created to be able to shine like diamonds, to be able to be the brightest jewel possible, so that when we put all of our true essence into the space of humanity, it becomes the most brilliant mosaic that you could ever possibly imagine. That's who we are. That's who we were intended to be. Now let's get busy being it. Love you all.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Humanity Mosaic Podcast with Dr. E. For more information, please visit DeborahEgerton.com and be sure to check out theAuthenticSelfCommunity.com to continue your journey.